Hello, City of Knoxville. This is a City Council workshop to discuss the administration's parking study and recommendations. Thank you for all of you that are here in person, those of you watching at home, those of you that will watch this later. Thank you for your interest in this important topic. We will get started with a Pledge of Allegiance by Councilwoman Ryder. Please stand as you're able.
Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Johnson, will you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Fugit.
Here.
Councilwoman Helsley. Councilwoman McKenzie. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Ryder.
Here.
Councilman Roberto. Councilwoman Singh.
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Here.
And Councilman Thomas. 6 members present.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I believe we have a couple more joining us soon. To get us started, or I guess to lead us the entire way, we have a number of members from the mayor's administration, but Chief Policy Officer Cheryl Ball will guide us through the presentation today. I encourage council members to ask questions throughout the presentation. At risk of making us wait till the very end, we'll chime in as necessary, but I think we'll hold the bulk of our questions to the end as usual. So with that said, Chief Policy Officer Ball, please guide us through the presentation.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor Smith, and thank you all for giving us the opportunity to come today and share a little bit about downtown parking. First of all, I want to take just a quick moment to introduce Kara Finger. Kara is I know, Lauren, you can't see her, but she's sitting right here.
That joke off. You headed it off, nice.
Kara is the Deputy Policy Officer and joined the City of Knoxville in August and has been very engulfed in parking for the last several months. So I'm pleased to have her join the team. Our downtown is really a vibrant place that attracts a lot of folks, and we all want to assure that parking continues to support a really excellent downtown experience. As Knoxville has continued to grow, it really was a great time for us to think about bringing in some consultants to help us do an assessment of downtown parking. And as you're aware, Walker Consultants did this downtown parking study and analysis, and it was released back in the spring. It is available on the city's website just by simply searching downtown parking study. It will take you straight to the page where this study is located. I wanted to highlight a few of the key findings from this particular study. That this group really does parking all over the country, and a few of their key findings were that we have ample parking resources in downtown Knoxville. We do have some great opportunities to look at improving our management and efficiency. We really need to look at our parking like a system and understanding that all parking is very interconnected, and adjustments with one's parking space has implications across a broad cross-section of additional spaces. We really want to be able to make data-driven decisions and look at things systematically. We're very focused on that user experience and creating an opportunity for parking to be easier and more efficient for folks coming to downtown, whether you live downtown, work downtown, or you come to play. Any of those are great reasons to come downtown, and we want to make sure you can find your place for parking. I just wanted to highlight a few of our parking resources. These are approximate numbers. There are a little bit of variations that move along these lines periodically with various and sundry things going on, anything from construction projects to where we might have corrals for scooters to there's a lot of different things that make those things vary a little bit. But This is just a snapshot of parking resources we have downtown. Whoops. And this is a map that shows the primary parking garages and the on-street. You're pretty familiar with where the on-street is, most likely. And there's more than 8,500 parking spaces at these garages and on-street parking.
Ms.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I'm like,
Oh,
I'm getting the halo effect. I hope you.
You look lovely.
Thank you. It matches the yellow. I can't really tell from here. Did those spaces include some of the under the overpass spaces that are back there on over there behind like the mill and mine, the axle?
Right. Those are not currently included in
Okay.
this particular,
Study.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You mentioned scooters. Are those spaces included in that count? Are any of these numbers? Okay, thank you.
No. These are actual parking.
Okay.
And follow up, was there a reason that they did not include them?
We didn't include them in that graphic and those numbers that I just showed in this right here. We didn't include them in this.
But are they in consideration because they will have to support baseball stadium, all this
Absolutely.
other stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So just to, again, help everyone sort of understand how we manage parking, PBA manages all of the garages and lots for both the city and the county. And they also do all of the parking enforcement or provide you with a citation when you are not correctly parked. And our city engineering team manages the on-street spaces. So we have, from the study, there were a number of recommendations, and what we have done is with a broad cross-section of external partners that have and touch parking, in addition to the myriad of internal teams that have some connection to parking, everything from finance to our engineering team and our operations team. We have sort of done an analysis of those different recommendations and come up with what we are recommending as the next steps for parking. We are excited to upgrade to some new technology. It gives us the opportunity to streamline, enhance what our parkers get for an experience downtown and really make it easier for them. It also gives us a chance to improve our permitting, enforcement, and mobile pay. Parking permits, we have a lot of categories of parking permits, and it's all done by hand at present. And so having a parking management system is going to be really critical for helping us create efficiencies, do this faster. That electronic back-end management of the renewals and payments is so essential. It's all done by hand right now. And it's also going to allow us the opportunity for some self-service via an online login. So if you are a monthly parker at one of our garages, and let's say that on a particular day, you're going to drive your spouse's vehicle. Oh, I should not talk with my hands. Your spouse's vehicle instead of your vehicle. They may not have your spouse's vehicle's license plate entered into their system or the make and model, and they may not realize that this is actually you and that you have paid for this, right? So you can go online yourself. You can enter the make, the model, the color. You can enter whatever are the pieces of information that are needed to be able to upgrade that, update that for them yourself. Another example is it's going to help us make sure we stay current with everyone's insurance, their updated insurance information. All of this can be done electronically through this management system. So we're really excited about that efficiency.
I didn't see this in the presentation, so I don't feel like I'm asking too early, but will just day visitors be able to pay that way where I can, if I'm just visiting for the day, I could have gone online, uploaded my license plate and other information, and it scans. I don't have to do anything.
In advance.
Yeah.
At this time, we are not really looking at that particular option. That doesn't mean that we can't go there in the future. So parking is, it really is its own organism, and it is constantly evolving. It's kind of like an amoeba, and we need to be staying on top of that. That's part of making sure that we're looking at the data and to help make those kinds of decisions in the future of like, when do we need to implement additional opportunities for payment and to purchase in advance or something like
So
that.
that may be an advanced adjustment to payment process down the road, depending on how
could
this
be.
first phase goes? Okay.
It could be.
I saw reference to paying, I think, as you enter as opposed to as you exit. Is that the case?
We're going to get to that.
Okay, all right. Councilwoman Fugit.
Okay, I think I remember our question now. So when you said that you could go online and change cars, so this is just because somebody's going to ask us.
Sure.
So how will they know that, can you have two vehicles tied to one permit? And
You, as the user, you will be able to
so I would
go
have
in.
to change it every day? Every
Well, if
time I
you were-
brought my spouse's car?
No, not necessarily every day. If you knew that you were going to drive it for the next week,
But it is time dependent. I could not have, Scott and Lynn Fugit could not share one pass.
that is correct.
That's my
That is
point.
correct,
So
yes.
so it would be, Lynn has the pass, and if I have to drive his vehicle, I put in that I'm driving it for that many days, or anybody else's vehicle
Yes.
for that many days. Okay.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
ma'am.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Yeah, Ms. Ball, you mentioned something about updating insurance. What insurance are you talking about?
Like your car insurance,
Who are you giving that to? The city?
the system, the management system, and I don't get too caught up in the car insurance thing. I was just using that as an example. I'm not even 100% confident if we ask for that, but I'm not even 100% confident that we ask for that, so don't misconstrue that. But if there are details that we need in order to have you have a parking space, any of those details that you provide to have a parking space can be done electronically through the system.
Okay.
That was perhaps not my best choice of an example. I apologize.
Thank you, Deputy Ball.
Okay. Parking enforcement. So we're really excited to help our team with PBA that manages parking to make sure that our citations and our permits are all integrated. It does make this a much easier process for them. And of course, those enforcement citations flowing directly to city court, some of that process does already happen. And I know that I've had multiple conversations with some of you about that particular process. But what we don't have in the current moment that we will get with this new technology is the opportunity to follow through. There will be an automated process for the follow-up and the collection of citation fees. So we're really excited about helping to create some automation for the city court system. Our new technology timeline is through January. We're working on setting up the technology, the access software, integrations, et cetera. And we're hopeful. It is tentative. You see the word tentative. We are hopeful to be able to launch our new technology in February of 2025. All of these technologies integrate together, and so launching all of them at the same time is a really critical piece of this. We are have gotten so many comments from folks who are excited about the opportunity to have mobile pay for on-street parking. Park Mobile is one of the largest vendors across the country. It is a free app to download. I actually already have this app, and many of you may as well. If you travel to other cities or have potentially parked on at UT sometime in the recent future, in the recent past, you may very well already have an account set up. Once you have an account set up, you only do it one time. So even if you do come across Park Mobile in other cities, you can use the same account. But it does provide you with the opportunity to move from our current on-street system to a mobile pay option. So I was going to go through now a few of the adjustments that we're going to be making across some of the different categories.
1 second. Councilwoman Singh has a question.
Oh, so sorry.
About the app. Are there other ways to pay, or do you have to have the app?
For on-street parking, we will be going exclusively to mobile pay. However, in our garages, we will continue to accept cash during normal business hours all the way through 8 p.m. And we'll have an attendant there through 8 p.m. And then after 8 p.m., it will be card only in the garages.
I looked at the numbers from the previous slide, and it looks like 5%, just under 5% of all parking is on street.
Correct.
So 95% of all parking options will still accept a credit card. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
And cash?
And cash up until 8 p.m. Cash has to be accepted by an attendant.
Right. So after 8 p.m., it would be credit card only.
Correct.
Wait, is that the way it is today?
Yes.
Okay. So 95% of all parking options will accept cash or card as they do today.
The same as it is today, yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Here are a few details for some adjustments we're making to on-street parking. As I mentioned, mobile pay. There will not be cards or coins accepted on street, but we do have that option available, as we just discussed, at our garages. The rates will increase from $1.50 to $2 per hour. That the current time frame for on-street parking is 2 hours, and we're keeping it at a 2-hour max. The long-term spots that we have, the rate is increasing from $1 an hour, from 30 cents an hour to $1 an hour. This is what we are proposing. And the other piece of this is it's a 10-hour max at present, and we're proposing going down to a 4-hour max. But this is something that we're going to continue to look at, because we have had some downtown businesses let us know that they feel like this might be a little bit of a challenge, in particular on some of our hospitality and retail workers that may use those spaces, because it's a cost-effective option for them. And so this is one of those categories that we're going to continue to look a little bit at how that might need to be tweaked as we go forward.
Deputy Ball, do we have any data of the current on-street parking to tell us how many parkers, if that's a word, how many people using the on-street parking are residents of the city or county or our area versus visitors?
We do not have that data, because that is not a part of what is entered. I mean, you stick a coin into your on-street, we have no data other than the fact that you send it
a
up.
lot of it is credit card use, right? I imagine somebody doesn't store that data for privacy reasons, but is there not? Okay. All right.
There is not at present.
Councilwoman Singh.
Thank you, Tommy. Employees in the hospitality industry, do we know about how many of those are using these parking spaces? And is there some sort of special permit we could give for that?
We do not know where employees park. We don't really have, we don't even know who is an employee of downtown versus who's just visiting. We just don't have that particular information. But we have heard some questions about making sure that we have options for our employees. We've talked with the Downtown Knoxville Alliance and Michelle Hummel about the possibility of them helping to stand up a program that would support parking for these employees and or their employers. And Michelle is looking forward to digging in on how some other cities have done
I'd
some of
really
these
like to
type-
see something like that, because, thank
Yeah.
you.
The 30-minute spots, the rate is, half of the, is $1 per 30 minutes. And we do have some stop and go spots that have been really popular for like running in and picking up a meal, et cetera. And those are all staying as they are. They're 15-minute spots.
Those are
very
great.
quick. Yeah. Yep, and those are staying as they are. One of the things that is a little bit of an adjustment is the hours for the fees are going to be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. What we're trying to do is create some consistency for the user because we had 3 different timelines for when fees are collected and wanted to make sure that we're keeping all of that on-street parking consistent. Right now, Gay Street is collected until 10 p.m. And it gets a little challenging. And so making sure that we're being consistent with this and creating the opportunity to create efficiencies across our enforcement as well. It is still going to be free nights after 8 p.m. and free on Sundays.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Can I ask a quick question about the stop and go? Sorry, it's in the packet on page 46 for the parking study. There's a picture, and it just shows pictures on Wall Street, which is between the stage and those towers there. Are there other places where they are, or is there a way to find where the stop and go places are?
Yeah, absolutely. We can send that to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, and I feel terrible, I don't know street names. Okay.
We can send that to you for sure.
Okay.
Most definitely.
All right.
One of the things that came out of the study that was particularly valuable for us is looking at valet parking. And as you can see from the first chart, which is kind of aligning us across peer cities, we are not aligned with peer cities. And we're not aligned with the value of our parking spaces. The consultant told us that we should really view our on-street parking like it is beachfront parking. So when you look at the fees that you see there from our peer cities, we do have a ways to go, and our recommendation is to do this over a 3-year period of time. Since we have been charging $250, it's a pretty big jump to go from that to $5,000. So looking at a tiered approach to get to that $5,000 price point. We're also looking, there are a number of different types of special uses that we have, and I know that many have probably participated with one of the temporary valet parking services in the past, and we're working on how exactly do we make sure that we manage those opportunities effectively.
Just have a couple questions for you. Councilwoman Fugit.
Thank you. So, lots of things. So, for peer communities, can you give me example of what peer communities they used as peers?
Chattanooga,
but,
Columbia, and Nashville,
Columbia what?
South Carolina.
Okay, not Asheville, not anybody, just
Well,
Greenville.
we do have
Greenville.
some that
No, I'm asking.
included
Yeah,
Asheville,
right.
but not specific, we didn't specifically include that
That's
for
fine,
this
but
one.
is that somewhere else in a big packet or something? I was just kind of curious how many different peer communities. It's not worth, struggling with now, but,
Well, we looked at a broad cross-section
Okay.
of peer communities that was more like about 10 or 12.
Okay.
If I might have to, it
That's
might take
fine.
me a minute to go back and look and see what all we did, but we looked at a broad cross-section. There is a peer communities chart in the study
okay, that's what I
from
was gonna say.
Walker
So
as well.
I haven't had time to fully
Sure.
look at that, so thank you.
Yes.
Because, just off the top of my head, I understand Columbia, but I don't, that doesn't, it is peer, but it's not close. So that's kind of what I was thinking about. And then the other thing about the on-street parking, the thing I will say about on-street parking is for 25 years, we've been talking about on-street parking way back when original downtown planners came. The whole point is to turn that parking, because what helps people want to be downtown and come somewhere is drive by in the hope that you may get a parking space on the street, and then you see what all is on the street that might make you park somewhere else and come in. That's part of urban design, is so that you will see what's available and go, oh, well, we'll go to that restaurant. Oh, there's not a parking place in front of it. Let's go park and go walk to it. And if you only go to a parking place, if you only go to a parking garage, sometimes you will never see what else is street front. So it is also to help, the turn is also to help people activate your downtown walking corridor piece. I mean, that's part of this urban design strategy. But the only thing that I will say, I like the 8 to 8 in terms of consistency, but basically what that means is if you come downtown for dinner, you pay. If you come downtown to late night activities, or you come early and stay after 8, do you get out for free?
Well, for on-street parking, you still have to pay when you park.
Right, I mean in the garages.
Well, we're getting to that. Garages are next.
Okay, so I totally misunderstood. Thank
We're
you.
talking about, that was for on-street, but everything that you said about turning over the on-street
Yeah.
parking is 100%, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I did neglect to mention, this is another thing that we've heard from downtown businesses, is the importance of turning over that parking. So I really appreciate you mentioning that. It is a critical thing for them, for us to make sure that beachfront parking is rotating.
That's why restaurants keep it cool to turn tables too.
All right.
Is that why it's cold in here? To keep us moving?
To make the meeting short.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Yeah, just a quick question. And I think there's a lot of things you guys know that we don't know, because I just come down and I park and I do my stuff, and we come down at night for meetings. We don't work during the day like many of the employees downtown. So, valet permits. Are you talking about like a hotel or a
Yes.
business downtown
Yes.
getting a permit from the city? And is it because the cars are parked in a garage, or is it because they're running a valet service at the curb on public
It's the
right of
curb.
way?
This is the curb. This is on-street parking for the purpose of valet parking at, for example, the Hyatt.
Okay.
Right.
So if I use the city right away to run a valet service, I need a permit?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you so much. Just wanted to ask. Yeah. Mr. Rosenberg, you're about to get a message from me about something. Thank you.
Councilwoman Singh.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ryder asked most of my questions, but, so this is generally hotels, and then if there are events going on. That's a huge increase from 24 to 25. Who's going to be bearing the brunt of that?
The cost will go to the permit holder, which is typically the hotel, for example. I'm sure that if there is a need to pass that along, it will be
Right.
to the.
I'm sure they will.
To their patrons, the patrons of the hotel, I would presume.
Okay. Thank you.
As you were. Thanks.
Enforcement adjustments. We've talked already a little bit about this, but really focusing on the technology and having that consistency of 8 to 8, and it will be that Monday through Saturday timeframe. And that is what we're currently doing. Just the only difference there is that it is on Gay Street 8 to 10 at present, and we're looking to just get that a little bit more buttoned up and consistent and easier to understand. We want it to be easier for the community to understand. Garages and lots. So the hours currently that we are charging for parking in our garages and lots is 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. That is staying the same. The payment, this is a change. Payment is going to be required regardless of departure time. So at present, if you depart after 6, you are not paying necessarily for the parking. Whereas going forward, you will only pay until the time of 6 p.m. But if you don't depart until 9 p.m., you still have to pay for the time you were in the garage up until 6 p.m. We are adjusting the hours and the fees for Market Square Garage to include Saturday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. with a flat $3 fee. Remains free on Sundays. The primary reasoning behind this particular change is the Market Square Garage. The occupancy rate is severely beyond our other garages consistently, week after week after week. And this is to help us start to level out those where our folks are parking. And they still have plenty of opportunities for free parking. And as
Sorry, question on this one. Back to the payment. Is it still too early? Is now a good time for the, okay, so paying right now as you leave the garage,
yes,
does the second bullet there require you to pay somehow as you enter the garage?
no.
Okay,
You will potentially pay as you enter the garage for Market Square Garage on Saturday, the flat $3 fee. That will be upon entry.
Okay.
But every other day, every other garage, no, it is upon exit.
okay, thank you. I was worried about congestion as you enter the garage if
Okay.
payment is on the front end.
Sure.
So, cool, thank you.
And I think that many of you have likely seen, we are really excited to have free parking for nights and weekends continue. We really want to make sure that our downtown continues to be a place. It really is a bit of an epicenter for our region, and we want to make sure that we continue to make that happen. We're really excited to create some wayfinding that stands out, that's visible, that can be used across all of our communications about parking. And so we have this Knox Park brand, and that if you look at the photo, no, that sign has not been replaced. It is a lovely work of our graphic designer to stick it over top on this particular photo, just so you can sort of see exactly what that would look like. What we're trying to do is make sure that we're creating a brand that distinguishes municipal parking a bit from private parking. There's a lot of Ps that people see and for parking, and it certainly is parking that is accessible to the public, but we do get a lot of communication from folks that they didn't realize they were parking in a private lot, and they had some sticker shock. They didn't understand the difference between the two. So trying to make sure we're being really clear about that and giving us the opportunity to make sure we're working on good wayfinding and helping people find the parking they're looking for.
With streamlining things, I don't remember if you said with Park Mobile, that's what the app was called?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a way to pay citations online?
We do.
Okay.
You can do that now, as a
Oh.
matter of fact. You can enter your license plate number.
Okay.
I think at least your license plate number. You might even be able to do it via your driver's license, but I'm not 100% positive about
Good.
that.
I haven't gotten a ticket in a while.
That's going to stay. Well, good. That's good. That's going to continue. Yes. Hopefully, maybe even be a little bit more enhanced process technologically as well. So there are a few ordinance adjustments
Right.
that we are looking at that we hope to bring to City Council here in the near future, and I wanted to kind of talk through those a little bit with you. We want to work with our friends at PBA to allow them, since they are working on citations, and issuing citations to be able to tow without having to pull a police officer into a parking situation off of, perhaps whatever beat they're on to help make that happen. And that is going to require an ordinance change. Maybe we should take these each one. Does anyone have questions? I see some lights. Does anyone have a question about that?
Mine can wait till the end. It was
Okay,
about- it
Councilwoman
was-
Parker,
Mine's actually, I wanted to see if we could talk more about the lots before we moved on to,
the lots,
yeah.
we covered that. Maybe we'll wait till the end for those. The
Well, we were just discussing the
garages.
garages
Is that
and
the ones
lots.
you're referring to?
But I didn't hear T-dot lots discussed.
T-dot lots, okay, go ahead.
Well, I noticed in the study, there were recommendations that involved the T-dot lots. So I didn't know if the administration had adopted any of those recommendations.
They are not a part of what we're presenting to you tonight, because that is probably going to be a part of another component that we're looking at as we go into the next year, 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Well, now that we have a break, may I ask my question? So I believe I've got myself situated about what I meant about peer cities. I was talking about parking in all of it. So the graph you gave was the cities about garages. So the on-street parking and those rates, I assume that was also compared to peer
100%.
cities. And is it the same city? I was sort of asking in general. So I assume we did same sort of peer pricing, peer city pricing.
Everything that you're seeing is based on peer cities.
Okay, and the same peer cities?
More or less.
Garage, okay. Okay.
I think, more or less.
That's just, it just helps with a frame of reference when people start calling us and talking to us about it, it was all compared, all pricing changes being proposed were compared to peer cities, and those are the examples of the peer cities that were used.
Those are examples, Lexington, Asheville. There were
Right.
more cities as well, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great.
Councilwoman Parker?
Yeah, I had a question about metered spaces,
Okay, I was just about to explain that.
please. And then I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we currently, in our code, it specifically lists meters, and we're looking at, for our on-street, we will be looking at mobile pay. And so we will need some adjustment to the language to just be sure that we're being maybe extra precautionary to make sure that we're covering and giving ourselves the authority to be sure that we can charge for those spaces. They're paid spaces.
So in the report, and as has been discussed tonight about any kind of on-street parking being this kind of waterfront property, there are some spaces downtown, and, I mentioned the T-dot lots, but then there's some on-street spaces that are not metered. Is the intention to make all on-street parking paid parking?
Most of the on-street parking is metered. There are a few places that we don't specifically have meters, and that is something that we're currently looking at, if that makes good sense. We won't be installing meters, let me be clear about that. But would we go to the mobile pay for those spaces as well? That's something that we are currently looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Thomas?
Yes, on that point, I know that a lot of, or some of the downtown workers, especially in the old city and maybe along Gay Street, use unmetered parking on some of the streets. These people are not necessarily high-wage people, and so the free parking is an amenity, and it allows them to get access to their jobs without having to pay wages that aren't very high. I just wanted to throw that in the mix about that kind of parking. Some of it was along Willow. Some of it is along Central where the Lily Flats are further up there. And If that is changed to metered, I think we really need to figure out some way to provide parking for those employees.
And that's, I think I mentioned earlier, we're working with the Downtown Knoxville Alliance to look at an opportunity to help create a program that can support our downtown hospitality and retail workers predominantly. But they have a great more capacity to be a little bit more nimble and responsive with a program like that, and that's why we're talking with them about that very thing, because it is important to us. That is how our downtown continues to function.
And another question, I think you've already hit on this, but I probably wanted to clarify. The parking near the mill and mine that is under the viaduct wasn't included in this particular study.
It was included in the study. The one map that I showed kind of early on in the presentation, I didn't have it specifically identified as a part of that particular map and those particular counts, simply because we're working on exactly how we're going to utilize those particular. Okay. How we're going to utilize those lots is we're still working on what is the best format and use.
So if I hear you right, maybe no decision's been made about whether or not those will be pay lots or free lots or?
Yeah, we're absolutely working on that now.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll keep you posted. We'll keep you posted.
Since the issue was raised about downtown workers and potentially needing these unmetered spots, and I agree. I know there was a discussion earlier about not necessarily knowing where downtown workers are parking or who are the downtown workers versus tourists, et cetera. But it seems important to me that we, and possible that we could survey downtown businesses to get a sense of where workers are parking before considering any sort of policy change that could impact that parking.
And that's why I think that working with the Downtown Knoxville Alliance is so important, because they are the ones who really have those direct relationships to be able to help us identify exactly where those folks are parking. And we want to be making data-driven decisions. I mean, that is really an important piece.
And let me add to that. The more data we can get to understand those who use downtown workers and et cetera, the better. And so even, as a part of that survey, we could find out, how many downtown workers have credit cards, have mobile phones, how many are, I work with so many artists who work downtown who, some don't even have bank account, okay? We have some pretty poor folks who make up the vibrancy of our downtown. And I think it's important to get a sense of what is making our downtown successful, who's making our downtown successful, and what potential policies could be a barrier to these folks.
I would just add one comment on top of that it would be good to be sure we get data before we make any decisions about removing any free parking. So
Sure.
I encourage you as to continue what you've been doing, which is to use data to make those decisions. Please go to that link for those, I think is important. Okay, no more questions for now.
Okay. Parking citation rates are something that is listed very specifically in our code, and we are, again, proposing new citation rates to align Knoxville with peer cities, and that is something that will be coming before council. I mean, we're proposing to do this, right? And so this is sort of a list of what the current fine is in the code, what we're proposing, and if it isn't paid within 10 days, our code indicates a $9 upcharge for that citation. And you'll notice there's a little footnote that says there's a $1 state of Tennessee litigation tax that will be added to everything in that final column. And again, there are details in the parking study that show the different peer cities and where we fall within those particular price points. So this is getting us close, much more on par with peer cities. And one thing that isn't up there that I really should mention is our ADA parking. The state of Tennessee caps, we're already maxed out at if someone is illegally parked in an ADA space, our code already, it's not up there because we can't change it. It's already at the maximum capacity that the state of Tennessee allows us to do. So I just wanted to let you know that's the only reason that we're not suggesting a change is we legally can't make one, so.
So the first two columns are the initial fee, or the fine, and then the third column is related to the $9 late fee
Correct.
and the $9 late fee won't change.
Correct, that's not
Okay.
gonna change.
Okay.
If you pay within, if you pay within 10 days, you're paying the middle column fee.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, that is all that I have.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the body of work that's gone into this. I know many departments across the city and Walker and Associates, that consultant has spent a lot of hours putting that together. As mentioned by multiple council members, there are a lot of recommendations in this report, and these are a select few you have brought forward for us to consider. So thank you for the diligence that went into that. Okay, we'll open the floor now for questions from council members. Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, a number that I've been asked about by constituents, and this issue won't surprise you, is the amount of unpaid parking tickets that are owed to the city. Do you have an amount on that? I've heard different figures thrown around, but I would love to have a
It
base
is,
amount.
We all would. It's a little bit of a challenging situation because if you look at some of the data, it looks like a really, really large number. But when you drill down into that data, we have people who have passed away. We have license plates that are no longer valid. If you recall, we all got new if you lived in the state of Tennessee, a lot of folks got new license plates a couple of years ago, and some of the data does connect and some of the data does not. We have people who are from out of state. So there's a lot of things related to that make it a little bit more challenging. Judge Cavanis has sent out a letter and to the round one, I guess we would call it, of the folks that have outstanding citations, and we're in the process of collecting at this juncture on that. And because it is, as I was mentioning earlier in the presentation, we're looking forward to creating this automated system. Because it is not currently an automated system, it has to be done by hand, and there's data that has to be, that his office has to acquire to be sure that they can have an appropriate address to send this to, et cetera. It is a time-consuming process. So it is something that we're following up on, his team is following up on in stages.
Okay. To follow up, do we have an amount, regardless of who has passed away or moved or we'll never be able to collect from, do we have an amount of how tickets were issued, the amount that were issued and weren't collected?
I do not have that, but I'm certain that we can dig in and get a number for you.
Okay, I would love to have that. And then another question, and I'm getting, and I'm going to pass it along, is people are wondering why we would be raising citation rates if we're not even collecting violations at the rates we already have.
And The new technology that we have is going to enable that to be an automated process instead of this hand cull. And so those things would happen simultaneously at the same time. That's what we're proposing. And so that when that happens, we will be, in addition to getting our fees for citation in alignment with peer cities, what we're also doing is having that automated process to help make sure that we're collecting on those fees.
And I guess I have another question about this idea of always aligning to peer cities. I mean, if what we're doing is working and, we are able to collect appropriate fees, like a $10 fee for parking, why is there a drive to align us to peer cities? I mean, are we trying to keep up with the Joneses or?
Sure.
Because, let's be the Knoxville that we can be and not necessarily say they're all doing that. Maybe we don't have to do it,
And if you dig into the study, you'll find that we didn't necessarily take every recommendation as the first thing to do. And B, you'll see that we aren't aligning with those peer cities exactly. And there are plenty of cities that are doing more. I do want to clarify that the citation rates are not, the citation rate increase is not an increase to park. It's if you have parked incorrectly and you're getting a violation, you're getting a ticket. Those are the fees that we're talking about with the citation fees. Yeah. No, we want Knoxville to remain unique. We do.
Councilwoman Parker.
I think that there can be some adjustments made to incentivize avoiding traffic or parking violations, because I don't believe our current system does deter it. It's cheaper to, I agree with the study that it's cheaper to park illegally than it is to pay to park downtown. So I think some adjustments are made, but I have the same questions as Councilmember Thomas, that there are so many changes being suggested at once that it does make you question what the intent behind all of these changes are. And then some of the language in the report that, made me uncomfortable was it sounded like, it was kind of an attempt to build a tourist economy downtown, to get the cars moving and other cars moving in. And I wonder if that might be something that works in a city like Charlotte, but might conflict with how individuals are using downtown Knoxville currently. Spending longer amounts of time downtown, making it a family activity or a day activity with friends, or I'm just worried about this shift, like a cultural shift that feels like it's being pushed for downtown that doesn't represent not only just currently how we're using it, but how I imagine people, see themselves using it into the future. And then, the affordability piece worries me. Obviously, the use of technology we have some suggested ordinance changes coming before us, but I would need to know more about policies that are in place around how all of the data collected would be used and stored and who would have access to it. All of that information, it makes me very uncomfortable that, anyone coming downtown would be subject to license plate reader technology, anyone parking on our city streets, and how far out would that go? Would it just be contained to the downtown area? And with this cultural shift, is this a new revenue source that the city is hoping to rely on? because approaching it, hoping that this will provide, a certain level of new revenue is going to change how we approach the policies. Whether we want downtown Knoxville to be this welcoming place for all, or whether we want it to be, the most revenue generating piece of our city. How we see it is how we'll approach it. And I've seen, downtown Knoxville be promoted over the last 20 years as kind of the heart of Knoxville that's going to bring in not only people from around the city, but visitors, to enjoy the city and to add to the economic well-being of the city, but not in like this kind of, what do you call that? That grocery store line belt, just move them through on the conveyor belt kind of sentiment. So I'm worried about impact on downtown workers' affordability, but also the big piece of it is the cultural shift and how much we might be hoping to rely on this volatile source of revenue that really ends up being a regressive tax and negatively, disproportionately impacts our low-income residents.
Councilwoman Fugit.
Thank you. One quick question and then a comment. And I don't know that you can answer this. Anybody can answer it today, but I'd be interested in knowing the answer. At what point do we determine that overdue citations are uncollectible and we take a write-off? That's just,
That is something that our team has been talking about, and,
Okay.
we can follow up
Right.
with you.
So, I mean, can you tell what I used to do for a living? So it's like at some point it's an uncollectible debt and there's no need to keep carrying it and you just need to write it off just for everybody's psyche so they don't keep chasing it as well. And the other thing I would say is, I think we all have shared the concerns about one of the things that's helped drive revitalization in downtown Knoxville for the last 25 years is some free weekend and night parking, which is going to stay. So I think like Saturdays and Sundays when locals are downtown enjoying family days, lots of the activities, that will still be free on Saturdays and Sundays, and then after 8 o'clock at night. So I'm really pleased that that recommendation remained, because that's one of the things I think we all heard the most when parking studies this was brought up. The adjustment to parking primarily will deal with people who may be down here to transact business with one of our office towers, or people that work here. And I would say during the day, that's mostly monthly parkers that get monthly parker permits. So first question is, I am interested to know when we write off. And I am encouraged that we will have technology that will make it so we don't get in that mess again. Because that's not a great thing if the license plates changed 2 years ago and we still can't find these people. That means they were probably past due for a while. So, thank you.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Yeah, so Ms. Ball, just to clarify from some of the questions that were asked, I just want to ask and have you answer so to make it clear for the public and for myself. So what we're proposing is a charge on the weekends, like Saturdays, Sundays would remain free in some of the downtown parking areas?
Everything, all of our garages will remain free on nights and weekends, with the exception of a $3 flat fee charge at Market Square Garage on
Okay.
Saturday.
Okay, so when I had little kids, I spent a lot more time downtown with them, playing in the fountains, feeding them some pizza, hanging out, meeting our friends. They're teenagers. They don't want to hang out and do stuff like that anymore with me. But so I can still do those things and not pay to park. I can park at the State Street Garage. I can park in the TDOT parking. I can park
Locust Street.
in a lot of different,
Yes.
okay, and Locust Street. But Market Square, I just would pay a $3 flat
Flat
fee.
fee. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're not taking that opportunity away, and that's not going to impact the employees on Saturday, Sunday. And we're going to work with the Downtown Alliance to figure out a strategy to accommodate the employees Monday through Friday,
Well,
to hopefully.
yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
Certainly.
Just on that note, I don't know if one way to accommodate the employees, and I haven't noticed if there's anything in the parking study about that, is they get a certain amount or hours of parking for free somewhere, but not necessarily, 100 hours a month, per week. They might get 40 or 50 or 60. I don't know that
There's
accommodates the need for what they're working. That's certainly not my, I'm curious, I know you said there's more in the packet than what was in the slides. Is Greenville also a comparative city? I know Councilwoman Fugit asked about Asheville. Okay, okay.
Most definitely. And there are many cities and best practices for programs like what you were talking about that are set up for downtown workers.
Okay. I'm going to backtrack to something here real quick. It says allowing towing without requiring KPD. Can you give me an example of what that means? Are we
At
talking about from a
present-
private lot or from a street?
No, this is all private folks are on their own.
Okay.
This is on public property.
Okay.
So when we have PBA
Okay.
maybe realizes that a car has been parked for an extensive period of time in
Okay.
a on-street parking space well beyond, and they have not paid the additional fee or whatever, then we have to bring in a KPD officer. We have to pull a KPD officer off of the work that they are doing to come and be able to tow. If we're going to institute towing, we have to bring a KPD officer to do that.
So-
And that's what we want to give. Our PBA enforcement officers are sworn officers, and we want to empower them to have that capacity
Okay.
so that we're not pulling
All right.
KPD away.
One other quick question, and I won't go deep into this if this is not part of what you guys are looking at, but in the study, one of the things that's in here is the parklet and outdoor dining opportunities. Is that something
That is not a right now thing.
Okay, thanks. That's what I wanted to know. All right.
Councilman Thomas.
Yes, this may be a question for Boyce Evans, but I'll ask, and if you know, fine. Back to the collection of fees for parking violations. Does that go into a particular fund that's earmarked for anything else? Do you know if that's just general court revenues, or what's that money go to?
Well, our team, Boyce's team and myself, we've been digging into making sure that we know exactly where the fees are going.
Okay.
Related to money for parking is set up as an enterprise fund. It is designed to be self-sustaining, and it isn't at present. Now, as you can see, we're not going crazy with significant parking fees, but it has not been able to maintain itself financially over the years, much less we haven't been able to invest in our parking assets like our garages for maintenance and upkeep in the way that we would really like to. We have some needs that we need to accommodate, but that's really not necessarily the exclusive behind. This is not designed to become a profit generating. It's designed to be invested back into the parking.
Okay, so what you're referring to is the amount of fees we collect in the garages?
Across the board.
Across the board, including?
Across the board, yes.
Including violations for parking tickets. Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Parker.
Oh, thank you. One thing I wanted to address is, what concerns me is that we have been given a report that have recommendations beyond what's presented tonight, but it does sound like those items will be dealt with and will come to us. And so when I'm speaking about kind of the overall impact on workers downtown, families who want to visit, others who want to spend long time downtown, I'm thinking of our policies that will impact, for instance, we just mentioned Market Square Garage or all city garages. Workers and families visiting downtown, see that as a location where they can come during the day, during the weekday, when the East Tennessee Historical Society is open and the library is open and all these amenities are open. And then if they stay until 6, then the garage is free when they leave. And so that's an amenity that's being taken away. Now they have to come after 8 p.m. or after 6 p.m.
Anytime after 6 p.m. and our garages will continue to be free.
or on Sunday for that to be free. There's a fee
Saturday or Sunday.
on Saturday
Only at Market Square
at
Garage.
Market Square Garage. The long-term parking meters, the streets with the free spaces, the conversation to come on the T-Dot lots. This is kind of the overall picture that concerns me about the direction that it's headed. It may come to us piece by piece, so it doesn't seem so bad. It's like, oh, this one little change and this another little change, and then another little change will come, but it seems like these are the changes that are coming. And I'm worried about the impact because this is how, I've grown accustomed to using downtown. I was a worker downtown in the late 90s, and so I've seen the transitions that the downtown has gone through, and that includes parking and availability for workers, and that continues to shift and shrink and change, and a lot of that are public parking spaces that become new developments. Where the library folks used to park is now this huge, beautiful residential building downtown that was, public property previously. And so, we may be presented with a couple of policies now, but we can't ignore the report in total that gives us a glimpse of what could be coming. And I don't feel like we're headed in the right direction. Is the administration planning to share with council any policies regarding use of this new proposed technology?
I might not understand the question, I'm sorry.
Is the administration planning to present council with any policies pertaining to the proposed technology that you would like to use for parking enforcement?
I think that the primary items that we are prepared to bring before council are the ones that we mentioned related to our ordinance changes, those particular policy items. But we want to be transparent. We're certainly not trying to hide anything, so we're happy to share with you details related to how things will be managed.
I think that's important. We had a workshop on the noise cameras, and our budget has funding for acquiring the noise cameras. But when asked about who had access to the data, how long was the data stored, where was the data stored, there were no answers. And so as we are, budgeting for acquiring and using these new smart technologies that are gathering up all this personal data, we have to have policies in place that will govern who has access to it, how long are we storing it, all of those things, so that people's private information is kept safe.
Councilwoman Ryder.
Ms. Ball, real quickly, do you happen to have the figure of how much it cost to add the top 2 levels to the State Street garage? I'm
I do
probably
not
the
have that.
only.
And honestly,
Yeah.
whatever figure somebody had, I'm sure is not accurate now.
No, I'm just curious. So I am probably the only council member sitting here at the moment that voted in that group of people because Councilman Roberto's not here and Councilwoman Welch has long departed. I believe we did that shortly after I got here, 2018. So I don't remember how many millions of dollars we spent to put those top 2 levels on that garage. No remembering?
I'm
Okay.
so sorry, I
I'm
do
just
not know.
curious. I think it's important for people to know how much we've spent. Yeah. Because, in the words of Dr. Shoup, the legendary expert on parking, there's no such thing as free parking. I just think that's important information for people to know how much the city has invested in parking. It's not free. We spend a lot of money for it. And when we sit here and we talk about free parking for people, particularly like say on the weekends, if we kept everything free, no offense, but it ends up being football parking for a lot of people when we leave it free. And then the folks that want to come down and enjoy downtown and aren't happening to be graced with going to the football game don't get to park, in all those spaces because we're supporting that. And I'm not denigrating that. I'm just saying, we share some stuff and it costs the taxpayer to provide these things. I mean, we're still paying for it. And that was Dr. Shoup's. And if anybody hasn't watched his stuff, his YouTube videos, he's hilarious in a deadpan way. So real quickly, though, I'm going to ask a quick question about cash. The peer cities, who is using and collecting cash?
Most are going away from it
Okay.
because of the inherent danger of having cash on hand. And so most are going away from that. If they haven't gone yet, they're looking at phasing out cash over the next any number. It varies based on the different cities.
Okay. I just know in a lot of cities that I've gone to, it's not possible to use cash to pay
Correct.
for the parking. So I'm just curious if there's peer cities that were still doing it and to what extent. Thanks.
Mr. Johnson?
Councilwoman Ryder, I have an answer for the budget question about the State Street garage for you. In the fiscal year 17-18 budget, $7.5 million was appropriated to add 2 floors to that garage.
How much has the price of concrete gone up?
I'll add
Mr. Frost?
Councilmember Della Vope voted for an addition to that garage before that. So it's been added to twice.
That's correct.
Appreciate the game day color. Appreciate that. Who's next? Councilwoman Helsley.
Deputy Ball, great presentation, thank you. I think, if I'm not mistaken, free parking across the board was to get people downtown back when nobody would come to a desert. So I'm not super opposed to people having to pay that have the means to do so. I am concerned about workers, however. The people who make it click, and then we get into the stadium, and that's gonna bring a whole nother influx of workers. So I'm just asking that the city, please look at parking for all these people, not just the current downtown ones, but the ones that are coming,
Absolutely.
because they don't make a lot of money. Thank you in advance.
Yes, absolutely.
Councilwoman Parker.
I just wanted to go back to that cash conversation about not wanting to have cash on hand. In the city garages, there are machines where you can use a card or you can insert cash. Is the problem with transporting cash from the machines to?
We do have attendants that are taking cash as well. We do have attendants that take cash, and that's probably the bigger issue rather than the machine.
So if we wanted to eliminate the concern of employees having cash on hand, we could potentially invest in these machines that can take the cash.
We could invest in the machines. They are, in addition to being very expensive, they are the most challenging for upkeep. They are the most riddled with continuous challenges and problems for accepting both coin and cash and paper money. It's it is a very clunky and all of the best technology that we have, it is still a very clunky system and difficult to keep them in good operation.
All right, I'll get a few questions in real fast. There's a lot of recommendations in the proposal. Thank you for this presentation. I think on the balance, this serves residents more than it does visitors, and I think that's a priority and good. I do think we've heard a consistent theme from everyone that either through the Downtown Business Alliance or some other means, we need to do a bit of research on how we can offset the impact on downtown workers and future downtown workers. Parking management, it was throughout the report was commentary about a lot of people are involved in parking, but no one group kind of oversees it all. Is that going to change?
It's definitely something that Grant Rosenberg, our COO, and myself are working on very directly.
Okay. So don't have an answer for that yet, but it is
Yes.
an aspect you want to change. Okay. Councilmember Thomas asked some questions earlier, and the report makes it clear that no parking is free, and including all of the spaces that are in the city now. Is current revenue from parking and fines associated with parking in the wrong spot, et cetera, earmarked or restricted in any way, shape, or form within the city's budget, or does it go into the general fund, and will that continue?
It goes into the parking fund. Parking is set up as its own enterprise fund, and so it goes back into fund parking.
Okay, so any new incremental revenue that comes in from these changes will go back into that fund. We can't use it for other things in the city, okay? The study said that the goal for on-street parking is to be at about 75 to 80% occupancy to allow for transient kind of movement. The study said that we're at 85% to 100% now. Is some of these changes to the fees associated with on-street parking hoping to reduce that because it seems really full?
Yes, for sure. We have folks that need long-term parking that are utilizing our on-street parking, and it really is designed for a more episodic and short-term opportunity for parking. And the rates vary based on whether you're talking about on-street or which garage you're talking about. Our garages are not at the same occupancy rates. They're all different. They all serve kind of a slightly different audience based on where people are going.
Sure.
And so they do vary pretty significantly.
Okay, a couple quick other ones. The report recommended, with the increase in on-street parking, to remove the online fee of $2.50 for online payment to encourage better payment of fines.
Oh, of fines.
Yeah, I mean, it was coupled with increase on-street parking, but on the other side of the pendulum, reduce or remove the fee associated with paying the fine online.
So some of that is the assumption of the credit card fees that we're charged. That is to make sure that we're covering that cost, but it is definitely something that we can certainly look at.
Okay. I think just, in the mix of what Judge Cavanis is doing and kind of the attempt to catch up to delinquent fees, but some of the work that he's done with diversion, I think if we want to encourage people to park right and then pay quickly, I think adding a fee to the pay quickly part doesn't necessarily help. So I wanted to ask that question. One or two more. I have a first district specific question. A lot of Fort Sanders was a significant part of the report, but no specific changes were presented tonight related to Fort Sanders.
Outside of mobile pay for the on-street.
Okay.
Mobile pay would be for the on-street in the fort as well.
Okay. All right. I just want to call out one thing that the increase in enrollment at UT not only has a housing pressure, but also a parking pressure. And so a lot of the students are parking downtown on the downtown side of Henley Street. And and finding unique ways to park there or in garages. So again, adding more pressure due to the increased enrollment of students. I mentioned, okay, on-street parking changes for the fort, but there weren't any other significant changes. But I do want to mention.
That's the primary parking that we have in the fort.
But I do want to mention that last week, University of Tennessee came to our council dinner and presented an overview of their parking changes. They've significantly overhauled the bands and the commuters and where they park. And so we discussed that at length. I encourage the public to check that out. And also, a fun fact that we learned from that is relevant, that currently 1,200 students per day ride the CAT buses. And so when we talk about parking and understanding that none of that's free and ease of transit and getting around, the fewer people that park in that downtown Fort Sanders zone, the better for everyone. So that's a surprising stat, and I wanted to raise it. The last question I had is, the scope of this report was around Fort Sanders and downtown. As Councilwoman Helsley mentioned, the multi-use stadium alone will add a unique dynamic to parking downtown. There was a parking assessment done as part of that decision to build or not build the stadium, but we will learn some things from that that will be surprises that we didn't know or that we thought there was enough capacity or not. I'm also thinking about extended corridors, so particularly for South Knoxville, I think about the South Waterfront. I also think of corridors outside of downtown to every other district area. Is there a point in the future, 6 months to a year, or where we ask Walker to take another look at this, where we take a look at it as a city? What is the future step a year from now, given all the dynamic changes that we're making now and all of the infrastructure and entertainment that's being built in and around?
So the new technology that we're going to be employing is heavily focused on us knowing what is happening in our with our parking. That's what we're trying to make sure we have the best data on. We have some data, but we think we can have better, we know that we can have better data through the use of the technology. So I think that it is going to help us as a city team which is broad and includes a lot of partners. A lot of partners that manage facilities for us have parking as well, and making sure that we're looking at that data and able to identify where do we have areas that we need to dig into, where do we have areas that we might want to have Walker or whomever come back and look at an additional study. And Walker is helping with the implementation of these technologies since they are so familiar with our parking at this point. And so I think that having that expertise is helpful on the front end to make sure we get it done as close to right as we can at this stage, and then look at those refinements going forward.
Is the goal to do a similar study in a year or two?
I don't know that we know that at this
Okay.
point.
All right. Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you. First question, I actually wanted to clarify something that you brought up, Vice Mayor, in reference to maybe a comment that Thomas had made about there's no free parking downtown, or what was that comment about?
Sorry, it was also related to what Councilwoman Ryder said, that just the principle of no parking is free in the sense that it costs somewhere or something. It costs money to manage the facilities. It costs money for PBA to do things.
It's from Dr. Shoup. He's an expert on parking from California, and he was brought in by the Planning Commission or something. I don't know if anybody here was part of that. And actually, I don't think he was brought here. Liz, I don't know if you remember that, but maybe they showed his video and had some folks come in like 7 years ago. The point is, there's no such thing as free parking. Like if you're at the Walmart had to pay for the parking, they had to pay for the stormwater management. It's all priced in the goods that you pay. If we build a parking garage and add 2 floors for $7.5 million, the citizens of Knoxville are paying for that in their property taxes. We have to pay for it somehow. There's no such thing as free parking. It's a philosophy. It's a fact. And so that's what Vice Mayor Smith was just repeating what I said when I was citing Dr. Shoup and his philosophy, or his stuff that there's no such thing as free parking.
And so when I think about the free parking downtown, I'm thinking about the on-street free parking. I'm thinking about the,
Yeah, it was more of a principled comment rather than a specific.
well, but I just wanted to clarify because if we go into it with this frame of thinking that there's no free parking downtown, then we won't try to preserve it. And
No,
there,
I agree we should preserve the existing free literal spots.
okay. Thank you. The other thing that struck me was the conversation about there's a need for long-term parking. There are a lot of folks using meters for long-term parking. That was just mentioned. And I was trying to get a sense of how do we know that? How have we assessed that? Because I know we talked earlier about we haven't done a survey of who's parking downtown, so we don't know who they are, where the workers are working. But have we done some sort of assessment that has identified some sort of long-term parkers?
We have long-term on-street parking, and we have data about the use of those spots. Is that helpful to answer your question?
So in addition to those spots, there may be other spots being used long-term.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then finally, it's a question about stadium parking. We had the parking study done previously that identified all these available parking spaces within a certain square mileage of the baseball stadium. And I think it's like 8,500 spaces or something like that. But we have a 7,000 capacity stadium coming, and as was mentioned earlier, not just the attendants, but also the workers and the people, playing the sport or putting on the show. The crew behind the scenes is another, probably a couple hundred people. Is there going to be a more fleshed out plan for baseball stadium parking? Or is the plan to increase the cost of parking downtown to try to move more people out and to discourage parking downtown so it opens up spaces for baseball stadium?
So we are working on parking plans for the Covenant Health Park and the events that will take place at that facility. These plans are still in process. We are coordinating across a broad cross-section of partners, of course, to make that happen. Our goal is, of course, to provide a quality experience for the park attendees, which would include the workers there. Their arrival, their departure, and we'll make sure that we keep council updated as we finalize those plans. It's going to be in the first several months of 2025 before we're going to really have those details prepared to share with you, but we absolutely will do that.
Okay. I just wanted to make a final statement that, I hope that we get the plans for the baseball stadium sooner rather than later because there's a lot of concern about what those plans will be and how it's going to impact the downtown. I encourage the administration to, to not try to implement too much at once. Of course, there are certain issues that I'm just opposed to with the use of technology. But also, if we have clear goals in mind, let's try something before we try the bulk of the recommendations. Would be my hope for what comes before City Council moving forward. But this does make it even more urgent that we get a surveillance ordinance in place because essentially what my surveillance ordinance says is the administration, anytime you're talking about using these technologies, you need to have a policy in place. And my ordinance doesn't create a policy. It says, when you come before us, come with a policy. And I keep asking for a policy. We've been talking about these technologies for a couple of years now, and I still haven't been presented with any policies or any clarity, clear answers to my questions. So I think it's time for City Council to adopt an ordinance that just makes it clear when we adopt these new smart technologies, we have a policy in place of how they're used.
Yeah, just, I wanted to quickly correct the facts for public records since I believe Eric Vreeland got me the info. So the city spent $6.1 million to expand the State Street Garage in 2013. And then in 2018, it was an additional, I think, $11 million. So significant amount 2 times there.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. It's been very helpful. We'll be following up. I only have one last question, I think, and it has to do with the baseball stadium and down Willow under the viaduct where the recycle bins are. And what's the latest on what is being considered for that particular parcel?
Well, that's part of what we're trying to get figured
Okay,
out.
okay,
Is
all
how
right.
what do we do there to make sure that it makes the most sense?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for the excellent work. Thank you for the questions from council members. With no other lights, this meeting is adjourned.